It looked quite dangerous and barbaric.
Most people think elite athletes are born for the sport.
I caught the ball and didn't know what I was doing, I just ran.
But what if it started with fear, not passion?
I had no interest. He persisted.
One moment, one run, one teacher who refused to give up.
For the black community, which I could never be accepted by them because I was too white, and for the white community, I look like I'm black.
But behind the success was a deeper battle.
I always felt like it was me against the world.
Identity, belonging, and something to prove.
I'll never be the smartest person in the class, but I'll definitely be the person that works the hardest.
So he made a choice: outwork everyone and never feel comfortable at the top.
But never once did I take my position for granted.
This is Leon Lloyd.
Hello humans, welcome to the M-Word podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Leon Lloyd. Leon, thank you for joining me.
Hey, my pleasure, good to be here.
I'll provide just a quick introduction. It won't do it justice for your career. So rugby international, started at a young age, which we'll talk about, over 260 games for the Tigers, Leicester Tigers, England caps, Barbarians as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and there's, is it the Sevens?
Yeah, the Sevens,
yeah. So an illustrious career. I think the pinnacle, which I'm sure you'll tell us a story around, of scoring winning tries in the equivalent of the for football fan Champions Leagues, but the Heineken Cup. And then you transitioned out into a business career and made a very, I think I was listening to a podcast, I think they described it, you reached the elite of sport, and really you've done the same in business now. And I know you've recently become a doctor in organisational leadership.
Leadership, change management, that sort of space really.
So we'll talk about all that as well, and obviously that transition out of sport. But perhaps just to give some context to your background growing up and how you got into rugby. I suppose being 6'4" probably helps.
Yeah, so well, you think so, but I grew up in Coventry. Whilst I played my rugby in Leicester, I grew up in Coventry, inner city Coventry as well. And my dream was to play football. My dream was to play football, still is, to score the winning goal in the FA Cup final in Coventry City. I still have that as my aim. So no one really played rugby in my family. It was all of our dreams were, apart from my dad being a West Bromwich Albion supporter, we all wanted to support Coventry City. And then weirdly, I went to a school which only played rugby. Didn't have a football team, which was just weird when I look at it. It was weird then. When I look at it now,
would that be in a city, Coventry, as well?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, well, just one of the suburbs just outside. But I look at it now, I think it must have been a sign or something, because all the other schools around played football except for this one. So I went there and I didn't want to play. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't like the look of it. It looked quite dangerous and barbaric. And all my mates were playing football, so every time I was forced to play rugby, I felt like they were taking me away from playing football. However, at school, I was quite a boisterous individual growing up. I was a quick runner to start off with. That always helps, no matter what sport you play. I think that's crucial, speed. And I didn't mind getting stuck in and having a scrap every now and again. And I think my PE teacher recognised that I was always on the front foot. Wouldn't take a back step anyway. And they kept saying, "You'd be good at rugby." And I'm like, "Nah, it's not for me, sir. I'll play football." And then they ended up forcing me to play rugby for my detentions. They gave me the ball, and so I've said this story a lot of times around. I literally, through fear of someone grabbing me, I caught the ball and didn't know what I was doing. I just ran, and because I was quick, I just ran, a bit like Forrest Gump, just ran. And my PE teacher, Mr. Parker, was like, "Wow, let's do that again." And that started it. And even when I was playing, I could see. I'm so grateful now that he persisted, because I had no interest. And just kept inviting me there.
And how did the transition to then, obviously you get more physical in it, then just take to that? I quite enjoy that, because one of the things you mentioned to me before is you liked, certainly when you're a professional, you will like to be physical. So obviously there was once you've been hit a few times, it's like, oh, this isn't as bad as it first looked.
Yeah, it's like organised violence, really. You can get physical, but there are rules and sort of laws around it. And I think I've always been tall. I've always been quite slight as well, quite slim. So I'd never run into contact. I always see rugby as an evasion sport, where other people see it as a collision sport. They're big guys in a small guy and smash them. I was like, well, even if they're big or small, if I can run around them, that's where I think my strength was. So the game wasn't professional. I suppose an important part to note here is the game wasn't professional when I was playing. So it was never a dream to be a professional rugby player, because there was no such thing. And when the game turned pro, that coincided with me playing for England schoolboys under 16s and getting signed by Leicester Tigers. So the timing seemed to all work well. And then all of a sudden, we're professional rugby players.
So were you just spotted?
I was, yeah. So I played for my school. And I did love it in the end because I had my football mates and my rugby mates. And the rugby community is brilliant. They sort of took me in. I think they knew that I was sort of, I'd rather be somewhere else. And then I was made captain of the school team to try and encourage me to be more focused. And then I captained my club side, Barker's Butts in Coventry. I think I captained Coventry schools. And then I was all the way through, and it got to England schools. And I remember playing at Twickenham against Wales. I think we drew that game. And even at Twickenham looking around, it wasn't for me like, I want to play for England. And I think that match I got sort of someone from Barker's Butts, a guy called Pete Lloyd, who sadly is no longer with us, no relation but the same surname. He saw me and took me over to Leicester, said to the boss at Leicester at the time, we've got this young lad who's got potential, needs steering in the right direction, but he could have potential. And that's really, I'm so grateful for that to happen.
What would, you mentioned steering there, assuming that you were maybe steering in, what would Leon today, a piece of advice, tell the Leon then?
Oh, well, I think I was resistant to, I didn't like being, I was quite stubborn. Like being told what to do, or you're going to do this, you're going to rugby, and I was like, even if I wanted to go, I wouldn't go because just the way I was. And I think just being open to the opportunities, and I said, what advice should I give? I don't really know, because I think I'm grateful now, in hindsight, that people saw things that I didn't see, and they didn't just give up on me. They could have easily gone, well, we tried him once, he's got a bad attitude, move on to the next person, because that could have very easily happened, and they didn't. And I'm so grateful now because that changed my life. And
do you think that bad attitude, is that more just, I mean, it just sounds maybe that you were, yeah, it was a sort of bad attitude sounds quite harsh. But was it, or was it more just, I just don't like being told what to do, and therefore I'll do the opposite of whatever it is?
I think my upbringing, I'm a big believer you're a product of the environment. So in my family, so my mum, a single parent initially to start off with, living in a high-rise flat in the middle of Coventry, and then my stepdad, who's my dad, like he's been with me since I'm one. Growing up, so my mum's white, my stepdad's white, so my brother's white, my sisters are white. So growing up in that house and me being quite literally the black sheep of the family, and always being different, and it's quite weird being mixed race because you're too white for the black community, which I could never be accepted by them because I was too white, and for the white community, I look like I'm black, right? So I always felt like I was fighting to find where did I fit in. Not in my family, I didn't, but it's very obvious when we go out for family days that I stood out. So I think that I was always very defensive in my approach. I always felt like it was me against the world. I think it was just, I don't know. I don't know. I think I didn't realise that at the time, but I think growing up, looking back now, I think that's what gave me my competitiveness, my drive, my possibly defensiveness. I was quite defensive at times, and then that can be seen as, bad attitude maybe. But I was definitely driven.
We'll come on to the academic studies later in life. Was academic at school, or was school just other than maybe doing a bit of sport? Was that just a distraction from trying to be with mates or whatever? Or you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sort of. I even then didn't really know what high achiever was, but whatever group I was in, I wanted to be the best. And I wasn't always the best. So I wanted to be the best football player. I wasn't the best football player. I wanted to be the best at music. I wanted the best at music. So whatever class I was in, I worked really hard. Okay. And I always say I'll never be the smartest person in the class, but I'll definitely be the person that works the hardest because that's what I can control. So I worked really hard at my GCSEs, and people think, certainly my teammates would think that I wasn't like that because of my reputation of getting into trouble. But I did well at my GCSEs. Right. I worked hard, A's, B's, but I wasn't an academic. And even now, I don't see myself as an academic. Like doing my studies, my undergrad, my MBA, and my PhD, they don't come naturally to me. That comes from just graft and just working, being prepared to work harder than other people and do what's required. And I think I've always had that from a very young age. I think that's stood me in good stead, really.
Where do you think that's from? Is that family traits?
I think it's my dad. I think my dad was sort of was very strict. Stepdad, yeah, very strict to the point where, like timekeeping, this is the time you've got to be in. If you're a minute late, you might as well be an hour late. Like you're not allowed to be late, like really strict on stuff like that. And putting effort in, what can you control? And that's definitely shaped who I am today. And also how I parent as well. They were like all parents, right? Your parents get some things right and get some things wrong. You take the good bits that you agree with and you disregard the bad bits. I do the same with my kids, and I'm sure they'll do the same with theirs. They'll take the good bits, but I've taken the effort apart from my parents of work hard, like you're in control of how hard you work, and that's it. Then you can't blame anybody else, and then the results will come.
Yeah.
That sort of follow through into my sport as well. I was never the most skillful player until I left the school environment where I was the quickest and the tallest, and that stands out. When you step up the next level and you sign pro, everyone's the tallest and the quickest and the toughest where they've come from. You're in a pond of all very similar people. So how do you separate yourself?
Did you notice that quite quickly then when you turned?
Yeah, well, I left school at 16 to go and live with a guy called Martin Johnson, who people will know as the former England and Lions captain, an absolute legend. With a view to him shaping me, I could have gone that way or that way. And I lived with him, and he's sort of like...
Is he around your age?
No, he's quite older.
So did he, in theory, take you under your wing? Was that type of...
Yeah, and I don't think he had much choice in it. Well, obviously he had a choice. He didn't have to let me live with him. But Pete Lloyd, the chap I mentioned before, he was like, Jono, this is how I understood. Jono, I've got this lad. I think he needs to be taken out of the environment he's in, put in a new environment. He's got potential to go well, but if he stays there, it might be a lost talent. And Jono's wife at the time was in New Zealand. She's a Kiwi. She was away in New Zealand at the time, his girlfriend. So he had space, and it wasn't a hardship for him. And he said, yeah, okay, let's see what he's got. Went to live with him, trained with him, ate with him, learned how to just behave. And also there's a chap called Neil Back, which I have to mention, who's one of the best players ever. Like the English Open side for Lanka, won a World Cup, British Lion, also from Coventry, also from Barker Butts. He took me over and took me under his wing. So I think by being around those two people, I moved from being this young kid with potential at 16, 17 to literally just hanging on to their coattails. If they went to the next training session, bearing in mind the game wasn't professional, they both had full-time jobs, but they'd go and train outside of those. I would go with them and train. Just by being around them, I'm learning things all the time. And I think, again, those are things either by luck or by strategy, I don't know, but that's certainly a big part of my journey.
And do you remember breaking through when you kind of, let's say, stepped up, and I'm sure you got the first game, but at that time, did you start feeling like I belong here?
I remember seeing the things that came with it. When the game turned pro, in my first contract, I was...
What year would that be?
95, 96. Right. And I signed an academy contract. It was like $7,500, I think it was. $7,500 to someone who's 17 is like, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have to pay my house and all the other things. I had a sponsored car, sort of brand new car. My parents didn't know about a brand new car. So I had a brand new car at 17, which is just madness when I think back to it. But I could see, if you work hard, what my peers and what you could achieve. So I just stopped doing the stuff which I knew would distract me. Did I ever feel like I never ever felt like I was secure in my place. Even after, like I mentioned at the start, like I'm very fortunate to play nearly 270 games, won 11 trophies, played in all the finals, lost in 5 finals as well. That's a massive opportunity to be the best, 16 chances to be the best. But never once did I take my position for granted. I think because of my background, I think. So selection day, I could have scored a hat-trick in the 3 matches leading up to selection for the final, and I'd still be really anxious before they named the team, because everyone was good. Yeah. And they could remove Leon and put somebody else in, and the team would still be, as good. So in my head, I always felt like I needed to be on it to be able to stay at that level. And I think that's what drove me. And
I'd assume generally within, and maybe not, but the whole team, is that a mentality that's certainly in the high-performing team when you're winning things? I presume that's just everyone's mentality to that stage? Like it's just part of the culture?
I was very lucky because I wasn't in that environment. Then I was brought into that environment, and it was awesome. It was a shock to the system because as a kid, 16, 17, I made my debut at 17 with all these grown men. And it's like boys be men, and all of a sudden I'm with the men, and I'm still really a boy, a very immature boy. But that environment was just like nothing I'd seen before. Because it's the only one I'd been in elite sport, I thought that was normal. I thought that's what every team must be doing. It's only when I went to another club, when I left Leicester at the end of my career to go to another club, and realised who were equally as good, right? They still had world-class players, World Cup winners in it. I realised that environment was not normal. Like what those guys, it wasn't from the boss driving it. It was a core group of senior leaders, senior players in that team that drove the standards, set the non-negotiables for the rest of us to buy into and continue to drive. And when those players retired or moved on, the baton was passed on to us to make sure the other lads that came through understood what it meant to wear the jersey. And I think that was just, if you could bottle that up and sort of sell it to, you look at like the Man United or whatever team that's been successful over a period of time, I'm sure there'll be similar stories of how that core group of people gets that buy-in to create the culture that attracts great players. And it's not about money. That's the thing I noticed. Every single one of our players, like we had something like a 5-year unbeaten home record. We'd won the league 4 times. We'd won Europe back to back, so the crowned champions of Europe. And all of the squad could have gone somewhere else and got between 10 and 50% more salary. But it wasn't about money. It was about, we're doing something here. Everyone gets on the field, off field. Our girlfriends and wives got on, creating a legacy. No one mentioned the word legacy, but we were creating something which was just epic. And I think I feel very privileged to have been involved at that time at Leicester Tigers.
Do you think part of that team that, well, I'm sure it's that did you go through different, they call coaches in rugby, I should know. Yeah, different coaches, or was it the same coach in sort of the let's call it the glory period?
Yeah, the professional era, we the Tigers recruited Bob Dwyer, who was our first professional coach. He was great. He'd won a World Cup with Australia beforehand.
I assume a lot of tones getting set from the coach. I appreciate you've got senior leaders in the team, but the coach.
He set at the beginning because we didn't know what we were doing. The game was amateur, and all of a sudden, one day it's amateur, the next day it's professional. So there's no knowledge on nutrition or So all they did was we were getting paid, so we just did the same stuff and duplicated it. So half the squad are pro, half the squad are semi-pro. So they had to go and work. So they couldn't just stop the jobs because they didn't know how long it was going to last. So we'd train in the morning, and I was a kid, so I didn't have a job. So I trained in the morning. Then we'd repeat the session in the afternoon because the guys who were at work couldn't do that session in the morning, did the session. There's no logic behind it. And there's necessarily an attitude of you'll train until you're sick. And when you're sick, that means you've trained hard enough. How does that work? I think that in the world nowadays of science and knowledge, we were just grafters. And I think that first coach we had in, Bob Dwyer, I don't know if he gets as much credit for what we did, because under him, we lost in the European Cup final. We won a cup. We won the Pilgrims Cup, the last cup. But the success we had later down the line, I believe, was set from the foundations and the training that he put in place, the work, the weekly schedule that we put in that other teams copied after that. But it was another coach that came in, and so Dean Richards, who's an absolute legend of the game, he stepped up from being our captain player, then become the boss. It was under him that we had our real glory years. But I think that he knows the environment inside out, and he just managed to pull the strings to get the best out of people. I
suppose, I mean, we were chatting to Gordy a little while ago, and he moved positions from... Did you find then, if from or was Dean then, because he was a leader within the team, it wasn't really looking at him any differently when he became a coach? Just the relationship,
for me personally,
the dynamic change a little bit.
Well, it did. I was always scared of him anyway, because it's Dean Richards. I watched him play for England on TV. He was an enforcer. He was a policeman. He was just a hard man, and he could look at you and you'd think, you're in trouble, right? If he just looks at you. And then when he retired, and then became the boss, if you like, the director of rugby, we understood that he'd never done that before. So he didn't know what he knew what he was doing, but he didn't really know. He wanted to shape the side. He wanted to shape it. So he was very fortunate that the players that he had in that time, we had 7 World Cup winners in that squad who went on to play for England and win a World Cup in 2003. They would have been under Dino's, most have been under Dino's remit. So he didn't really need to teach the guys technical skills. It's more people managing.
Yeah, okay.
How do you get the best out of these world-class players and bring the other people through and keep that the culture was really big. And I think that's what Dean was good at, recruiting the right types of people that fit in to that environment.
Yeah, potentially even quote less talented, but they fit the culture.
Yeah, we're never the most talented squad, but when someone was injured, the players that stepped through, this is one thing we always talk about. When the guys go away for international during the Six Nations, those gaps, because we were successful, we had a lot of players playing for England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and even Samoa and other teams during the autumn period. So they'd be away. So you need players to step into those slots and still be at the standard when you're playing against other teams who are probably not losing their star players, because their star players they haven't got as many star players away. So those younger players that are coming through, the fringe players, need to be on it. And we had so many amazing squad players that stepped up that when their time came, they then became the main players, then went on to have successful international careers as well. But at the time, you feel like you're a squad player. There was a nickname, polyfiller, just strong enough to fill a gap.
Okay.
Until the first team come back. But what they did was the bar was raised when the players were away from these hungry players in there. So when the guys came back, it's not a case of course they're going to be expected to get in the team. It's a case of, oh wow, these guys are not just holding the fort, but actually played really well. So it created that real nice internal challenge.
Yeah, and I guess the guys coming up, it's giving them exposure, perhaps without full responsibility, because it's for quote more limited period of time, but gives them that exposure and for longer term.
I wonder. It had to be strategic, because that can't be luck. So that means it's a really clever piece of strategy from Dean and the back office staff, that they were just recruiting these people and just moving the piece of the jigsaw that we didn't know. We just got on with it. We competed. We pushed each other really hard. We had some great world-class players. We had some great young players coming through. Stuff was done for the wives and girlfriends to make sure that things worked well off the field socially. You know, we always talk about the wives and girlfriends who don't really get a mention. But if you're playing for one club over here, and then all of a sudden Leicester Tigers come looking for you, you're pretty much going to say yes. Your wife or girlfriend at the time may have loads of friends over here, but you're going to take the opportunity to come here. So straight away, you're taken out of that environment, and you've got to go and forced friendship.
Yeah.
Got to make friends in a new group. It's okay for the player because you're seeing the lads every day, you're training, you're bonding really quickly. Now, as a partner, it's a lot harder. So I think that that needs to be appreciated, that effort needs to go in to make sure that person fits in, because if they don't fit in and they're always going back to where the friendship groups are, that's a bit of pressure on the player to not really want to be there or not go out on the socials and everything else. I think that's an often overlooked part of the jigsaw.
So you mentioned around like bringing people through, and for those that haven't listened to your TED talk, in there you talk about kind of the four key you've probably got the right term, but stones, I guess, to a team.
Pillars,
the 4 pillars. Yeah. Do you want to just talk a bit about that?
Yeah, my position, I played in the centre or on the wing, so that meant that I was quick, or should have been quick, and I got involved in a lot of the finishing off of the try. So I get all the glory positions. So my ears, if you don't know rugby, like most rugby players, ears are mashed up and their nose are broken. They've got scars and stitches. That's because they're doing their job properly. They're putting their heads in places which a lot of people don't want to do. I didn't have that position. I was at my job. My specific task was to score tries when it was out wide.
Yeah.
And the good thing about our team was I realised that it wasn't about me. The newspaper would say, Lloyd wins the game, or man of the match, this, that and the other. And it would be very easy to get caught up in all that. It is about me, look how great I am. But I think the real grounding of our team was the reason I'm out there in a position to score those tries and my kit's clean and my nose is not bashed up and anything else is because other people are doing their job so well that I don't need to get involved, and they are providing a platform for me to just do my job. So I can't do their job, they can't do my job. And it was understanding, this is what my TED talk was about, it was understanding in a team, it takes all sorts, and you need those, sometimes I call them the invisible team members. And you need to recognize those people, because if they keep doing their job and feel like they're invisible and don't get recognition, it's a human trait, right? People want to be acknowledged. And if they keep doing their job, which you need them to do, and they don't get acknowledged and they leave, no one wins anything. So what we were very good at doing is recognizing what's your skill set, what's your role? Okay, do that to the best of your ability. Don't worry about anything else. What's yours, and how we link that together. And then before you know it, everyone understands their roles. And if someone goes above and beyond and steps into somebody else's, that's great. It's not expected, but people tend to do that to help each other out. Yeah. That's when you get in flow, and that's when we smashed it.
And that I guess again, culture's getting set from Dean, getting set from the captain.
Yeah.
I presume John.
No one person was bigger than the team, and we had players who came to our club who felt like they're superstars, world-class players, who were probably seen as a world-class superstar in the club they've come to our environment, which was very different, and realised very quickly. No one player, whether you're Martin Johnson or not.
Did most of them adapt, or
most did? Most could. Some didn't want to, or some didn't realise it wasn't the right environment for them, which was great for them to, rather than sit at a club that you don't enjoy, leave. Like literally go somewhere else and continue being a world-class player somewhere else. Yeah. And some of them did that, and credit to them, right, for still having a good career. But it was quite unique what we had, and there was the non-negotiables very clear.
And when you look at the England environment that you came into, was that a similar type of, from your experience of going with the England team?
No, it wasn't really. It was very different to my...
And do you think that's because they're only getting together for a short period of time?
Yeah, and trying to build that culture, like the Tigers, every club culture will be with each other every day, day in, day out, and it's very easy to steer and manipulate that. England, you bring in people from different cultures together. So I'd argue it's a very different challenge. Different cultures, lots of egos. Now you're dealing with the best people in England, and how do you get the best out of them? Yes, it was for me. It was very different because the style that we played at Leicester suited me, and I adapted my way I played to make sure I did what the coach wanted and the team needed me to do, so that I got picked. What England wanted me in my position to do was different. So the person that could do that better than me got picked more than I did. And I think that's something that I battled with because I was playing for Leicester, I'm winning man of the match, I'm scoring tries and we're winning trophies, and I'm not getting picked for England. And I just couldn't understand what I needed to do to make that next level, and my teammates were getting picked.
Do you think, like reflecting back, you do understand more now that, or let's say were you more frustrated then, or was there understanding then but still frustrated?
I think there was a lack of communication then around. There's lots of fear back then. I suppose when I was at England, I played not to make mistakes rather than express myself as a player. And the environment was express yourself as a player. But every time I got picked in, I thought, right, I'm in here now. I need to stay here. Don't make mistakes. As soon as you approach any environment like that, you're not really getting the best out of it. Whereas Leicester, I didn't worry about making mistakes. I didn't make mistakes on purpose, but the players, I'd earned the trust and the respect from the squad. They knew that if I made a mistake, I'd only make it once because I'd learn from it. But that environment was very different to the one I had at England, and I hadn't really got enough credit in the bank with the England coach to go, okay, we'll give him another go. So if I got a chance and it went wrong, I was out. Then I have to wait a year or two to get back in. Got my chance, and if it went wrong, I was out again. So I was very much a bit part, unfortunately.
I know you've touched on. I think we'll talk about your studies, but you've talked that as your World Cup medal.
Yeah.
Do you feel you've put that to bed now in your own head?
Absolutely not.
No.
I wish that I could, and I think I have to tell myself, and people do tell me, that more people haven't won a World Cup than have won a World Cup. Right? That's obvious. But to be so close to being part of that squad, and as I said, 7 of my teammates won a World Cup, and I'm really proud of them, what they achieved. It's awesome. It's been life-changing for them. But I was in the World Cup squad in '99 where we didn't win, and then in '03 when the boys went on and won it. Now I can't win that World Cup. I can't, as a player, physically, I struggle to walk up the stairs, let alone play a rugby match. So I was thinking to myself, how do I stand shoulder to shoulder, with my peers of them saying, oh, that's the same as winning the World Cup. And I think that's what drove me we talk about what I was like as a kid. That's what drove me I needed to achieve something so that I can stand shoulder to shoulder with Martin Johnson. And I thought to myself, I want to get a first class degree. And when I achieved the first class degree, it was so hard because I left school at 16 to go back and try and do a degree at 35 when I'm trying to be a good dad, good husband, run a business, everything else was quite difficult. But I got it, and I remember shaking the Chancellor's hand on stage, getting my certificate, and I thought to myself, that can't be the same as winning a World Cup because it didn't feel the same. So I was constantly chasing, so I just raised the bar to do an MBA. Didn't put as much pressure on me. Did my MBA, shaking the Chancellor's hand, thinking, no, I'm sure lifting that trophy, the World Best Trophy, would be different. And I thought, well, I'm going to have one last go. I'm going to do a PhD, because then surely, if I get a PhD, this must be the same as winning a World Cup. That was pretty hard doing a PhD. Got my PhD again, shaking the Chancellor's hand, and I remember thinking to myself, there isn't the joy is in the journey. I think of actually going through those things, not actually the destination, because I'll never know what it feels like to win a World Cup. And the guys who have won it, they've said to me, they'd swap. You hear some of them in the media at the moment saying they'd swap their World Cup medal for more experience in business. That's that one. They don't be remembered for the thing that happened in 2003, where I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But at some point, I have to press pause and look back at the journey and enjoy the journey. But yeah, it's not in my nature.
And if that process, maybe you go back to training day or playing days, was there also that? Yeah, obviously winning Heineken Cup finals is amazing, but I speak to a lot of athletes, a lot of them seem to, I wouldn't say enjoy the process more, but it's the process that really brings the joy. And great, there's something at the end of it, but it's that. I think that comes from playing days then.
I think winning is a habit. I think winning is a habit, so also losing is a habit. And I think when you're in a successful environment and you're in flow, you can take it for granted. And I remember we won the first league in 98, 99, I think. Then we won it again, and we're like, oh wow. With the same squad. Then we won it again, third time. No one had done it. And the third time we'd won the treble. So we'd won the league, the domestic cup, and the European Cup. And we're like, I remember going into the change room after we won the won the European Cup in Paris, in Parc de France. I think it was Neil Back. that sat down and it was all that everyone's going crazy. We just won the game in injury time away from home in Paris, biggest game in the club's history. And everyone's literally going, we lost in that final few years beforehand. And Baku was like, lads, no one has won this back to back. Like, who thinks about that? Who thinks about not even celebrating it now, but thinking about what happens next year? And I remember I was probably only about 20 at the time, 2021, like, what's he on about? Like, what a nutter.
Get the beers in.
Get the beers in. Anyway, we went on and celebrated, won the treble, everything was great. The next year we won the league again for the fourth time. We get to the Heineken Cup final, we win the Heineken first team to win it back to back. And I do remember that no one in the change room gave the same speech that back year before about no one's won it three times. And the club haven't won it since then.
Yeah.
So I think that environment is the culture again, is around the people that bring that to life and getting the core group of people who buy into it. And I think you can take that for granted. It's only when you're not in it, you realise how good it was.
Yeah, and look, that's ultimate high-performing environment, isn't it? That people are continuing to push on even in the face of complete celebration.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So if you look around the dressing room all through your career, like leaders that jump out, obviously you've sat and done a doctorate in leadership. Talk about the two then from the studying aspect to what you saw on the field and the people around you.
Yeah, it's like we said at the beginning around parenting. Like, you've got parents and they'll do every parent tries to do the best they can do as a parent. And, as a child, you'll take the best bits that they do and you disregard the bad bits. And when you become a parent, you try and impart the best bits onto your kids. I've done the same with coaching, really. I've had some amazing coaches. I've never had one coach that's got it all right, because it's impossible to get everything right. So I've had some amazing coaches, I've had some amazing captains. And I've just held on to the bits that personally have worked for me. Somebody else, the bits may work differently, and then disregarded the bits what didn't work or didn't sit true to in my value set or how I like to operate. And I take bits from all different areas and try and merge that together. I think that shaped my values of how I am as a human being, not just as a person, as a leader, but as how I am as Leon is exactly how I am at work, at home, socially, and I'm very clear. I'm quite black and white with you ask any of my mates how I'm quite consistent with my approach. I think that's from taking the great bits from the great leaders that have made history and created legacies. But it might be just something really small from them all, and they may not even know that it's from them.
Yeah.
But it hits a chord with me, and I'll remember that.
Shapes you. Appreciate I'm jumping around here. I want to go back to that final where there's 60,000 people in the stadium, it's on TV. Were you ever a nervous player, or did I ever think about any of that?
I was nervous, and I didn't even know what word. I didn't know what anxious meant then. I don't know what it means now, but I think anxiety around selection.
Okay.
And looking back, I don't know why I was so anxious around selection, because I held down my shirt for 11 years.
Baggy shirts from what I've seen online.
Yeah, but I think that's the environment. Like, no one. It'd be interesting for me to ask someone like Martin Johnson or Neil Back or somebody else, they're a superstar, whether they ever felt like the shirt was theirs. But I definitely didn't feel like that. I felt like I had to, in training, in the match, prove myself every week. So the pitch, I remember going to the match you're talking about in Parc de France. We went to the stadium when it was empty, to the team in the day before, and we sat in the stadium when it was, and looked down on the pitch. And the atmosphere there when it was empty was just unbelievable there. And knowing that I was on the bench when we played in the European Cup final previously and we lost to Brive, and again, I was a kid then as well, I was the youngest in the team by far, and we never thought we'd get a chance to go into the second European Cup final. And now I was about to start in the European Cup final. And I said before, my dream was to score the winning goal in the FA Cup final. I've been fortunate to score some winning and crucial tries in matches. Even just for the person putting it down, for the hard work of my teammates. I don't take the glory, that's not me doing that, that's the team working hard to put me in that place. So in my head, I'm thinking, if you're going to score, you might as well score the winner. And that's been my mindset all the way through. And we get to the game, and you could tell it was intense. We nearly had a fight before the game kicked off. So we're lining up, walking towards each other, and I'm thinking, this is my type of game. You could feel it. A lot of our players were due to retire then that match, so this is their last chance to put right the wrongs of getting beat in the previous one. And we came together, walked together, and I thought we were doing national anthems, and it wasn't. It was a standoff, and we literally went forward nose to nose with the French, effectively the French national side they were. And I thought, this is it. This is why we play the game. Yeah, it was
At that
awesome.
moment, you're not nervous. You're like,
No.
bring it on.
No, I'm not nervous. I think
Because you know you're in the team, the nervous bits.
I'm looking around my teammates, and I wouldn't want to be. They had a team full of superstars. Their team was unbelievable. But I look around my teammates thinking, this is building up. So we'd already won the league, we'd already won the cup, we'd already won the double already. Yeah. We could have lost that final, and it's still been a great year for the club. But we didn't want that. We wanted to win the European. No one had done it before. Then we played the game. I wasn't nervous really. Just 80 minutes. You don't see the crowd. You talk about 60,000 people. As a fan, I go to matches. I was at Twickenham the other day, and I was sat in my little seat, and 82,000 people at Twickenham. And I looked down, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe what it must feel like. I've forgotten what it feels like to run out on that pitch with those people." And bear in mind, I did that a lot of times, but you don't notice the crowd when you do, because you're there to do your job.
Yeah, right.
You're there focused on your job. But now I think if I thought about it, I probably would be really nervous. So it was awesome for me. That's probably my best game, my most memorable game of my career in that final.
Yeah, I'm sure. A story you told me a little while ago around playing for England, and you were brought on and you caused a penalty quite early on and got sin bin, I think it's the term, into my rugby terms. And we were chatting about, I think Clive Wood was the manager.
Yeah.
And when you reflect on that, and maybe you touched on this when we were chatting about it, that obviously you're trying to get selected, trying to catch his eye. Do you think maybe, like some of your attributes, I think you talked about, you used to like to smash people. Do you think some of those attributes now, again, if I go back to the question very early on, which was, what would you tell younger Leon? Do you think you'd tell that Leon just about to come on, calm down a little, or do you not massively reflect on those?
No, I do. I used to battle with it. I used to battle with trying to change who I was as a person, as a player. And I did try to be less aggressive on the field, and I didn't play very well.
No.
I needed to be up for a game. I needed to be confrontational. I needed to be in it to be able to do my job for the team. And I did try to sacrifice what I do what worked well for the team, my club side, with a view to getting selected for England. And I didn't play well for my club side. I mean, if you don't play well for your club side, you're not going to get picked for England. So I tried it, and it just didn't work. And my wife says it to me all the time: if you kept your mouth shut and did what you were told, you'd have more England caps. But I don't know if I'd have been. I don't know. I don't know if I would have had. There's no guarantee I would have had more caps, and I don't know if I'd have been any better anyway, because I'd been compromising who I am as a person, and certainly my life after sport would have been very different. So in a way, I talk about the low points of my career, my international career, and the stuff I've learned now as part of my job. And I'd have to find something else to talk about.
Yeah.
So it shapes us, isn't it? All the things we do shape who we are today. So I tried to tell myself I wouldn't change any of it. Yes, I played for England 5 times. I'd love to have played 6. But if I'd have played 6, I'd be sat here now saying to you, I'd love to have played 7.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way I am. So I think I'm just grateful for the 5 times that Sir Clive gave me 5 opportunities. And, you know, as I say to my kids now, like, if I was a better player, I'd have got more caps.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, no, I get it. So transitioning out of rugby then, I know you set up a foundation, that transition. So again, in chatting with athletes, and even at I call club level athletes back on the Isle of Man as well, and international, the transition out of sport into civilian life, I suppose they say, from the military, don't they? You often see that struggle because of the identity so attached to, I'm Leon, the rugby player, for example. How was it for you? I know you set up an organisation, but was that because you found it challenging, or you just saw other colleagues or friends or players that had struggled?
Yeah, I think
it's called, remind me of the charity?
Switch to Play.
Switch to Play, yeah.
So when I retired and I thought I'll be fine transitioning out. I retired at 30.
And you retired injured as well, which I'm sure was difficult.
It was not on my terms. And I retired at Gloucester, so I played all my rugby career at Leicester, and then I had 1 year at Gloucester. It wasn't supposed to be 1 year, I was supposed to be longer than that, but my knees packed in, unfortunately, so it turned out to be 1 year. So the challenge with that is...
So that doctor said you couldn't play anymore?
Yes, surgeon. My knees had gone, and he knew my knees very well. He'd operated on me a lot of times. But the challenge with that is, I'm no longer a Leicester player where I'd built up that credit and the stock and that friendship group and my wife, friends there. who were at Gloucester, hadn't been there long enough to build up the core foundation. So I'm not really a Gloucester player, and I'm no longer a Leicester player. So I'm caught in the middle of the two. In fact, actually, I'm not even a player. So the identity piece was, I was always Leon, the rugby player. From the age of 16, when I played for England schoolboys, my parents would be, oh, your son Leon, oh, he plays rugby. So I was never Leon, the dad, the husband, the non-exec, the charity ambassador, all those things. I was always Leon, the rugby player. And when you take away the rugby player part, it's hard to figure out who you are, what your purpose is, what gets you out of bed in the morning, especially when all your mates are still living the dream. You know, it's stupid now, and I look back at it, and naive to think, I thought we'd all retire at the same time, and we'd continue to be the best of mates. We'd go and play golf and go on holiday together, and we'd work together. That's just naive thinking about it. So you retire on your own, and the team carries on. And I had this real guilt period where I remembered all my other teammates who had retired, and I didn't give them a second thought.
Oh, okay.
Because they'd walk in training, a bit gloomy, just had an operation or bad news from the surgeon, and they'd be like cleaning out their locker, going for the last time, and they're just wandering around, and they're waving by, and we're like, oh, see you, Dave. Sorry to hear the news. Good luck, whatever you're doing. Got a game at the weekend. Our focus was so much on the game at the weekend, and poor old Dave, and sorting himself out. And it's not until I become Dave when I realise all those people that were probably just wanting a coffee or needing an arm round or just to vent was there. So the reason I did that, I ended up writing a book called From Boot Room to Boardroom, Life After Sport, because I felt like I failed at my own transition. I felt like I'd put all the things in place. I knew how to run a business because I ran businesses whilst I was still playing. I knew how to manage people because I'd learned all the skills. I'd shadowed CEOs and worked in different areas whilst I was still playing. So I felt like I was fully equipped to transition effortlessly. It wasn't about money. I've been quite smart with my money, so I knew I didn't need a massive change in lifestyle because I didn't live above my means. The bit that I didn't prepare for was that being that part of that team.
All right.
And that blindsided me, like not being in that team, not being told where to be, what to do, what to wear, that structured life. And all of a sudden I'm on the outside looking in, and I can get out of bed whatever time I want, I can wear whatever I want. That sounds really weird, especially as a 30-year-old man who's a dad, and we had our first daughter. And I felt it took me a long time to come to grips with, you know, how could I have done that better? And there was no research in rugby because I was one of the first my era was the first professional era. So research in football and NFL and basketball, and did all that sort of research where the money's very different to rugby. And you realise about this non-athletic identity. That's why I did my undergraduate degree around. My dissertation was on that. How can players be better prepared? How can clubs better support them? And that led me to being approached by, after I wrote my books, approached by Switch to Play, who had set up as a limited company, the guys from Loughborough, who were smart guys, but hadn't played sport to a high level. They wanted somebody to be the person at the front to try and bring people in. I didn't want to be that person just at the front. I wanted to get my fingers dirty in it all. I ended up becoming chief exec after a while of there, but we converted it. We said the aim was always to go to a not-for-profit, then become a charity. So over the 5 years, I was there as chief exec, we converted it into a charity. And then, I left there COVID time.
Is that charity going to clubs, speaking to clubs about you need to support and help your players, and trying to empower the clubs and give them the toolkit, I guess, to then them to educate the players? Or are you picking up, are you purely, when you retire, come and see us type scenario?
There's a bit of both really, because every professional club will have their own governing body. So you've got the PFA, Professional Football Association, you've got the RPA, the Football Association, you've got the PCA for cricket, tennis has got their own, golf has got their own. So really you could argue, and those organisations did argue, there's no need for a Switch to Play because we've already got it covered. But I know for myself that you can't cover that much because it's an under-resourced entity, and there are so many people out there that don't make it. So you hear about the superstars the superstars that are struggling, but for every one football player, there are thousands of football players that didn't make it, also struggling, that haven't got the support. So Switch to Play was really about the forgotten majority, the ones that the academy kid that gets released feel like their life's over.
I've seen a documentary. It's a Liverpool. I think a couple of people that played with like Steve McMahon and Fowler but hadn't made it.
Yeah.
And how they And I suppose also I've got a friend at home as well where they were kind of side by side, and one went on to global stardom. It's like, it's not only do you not have a career, it's also what could have been.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's really tough. So that's what switch to play is. It's not to compete with the RPAs, the associations and governing bodies. It's to fill the gaps. And I took the sporting landscape a long time to realise, it's about collaboration, not competition. And they're doing great things now. We started off working with UK Sports for England, through my connection in rugby as well, the Premier League. When I was there, we went into all the Premier League Tier 1 academies. So I spent time at Man United, Arsenal, Burnley at the time we were there, Chelsea, Wolves, and go and work with the under-12s, under-23s. And the door was often closed. And the mistake I made was, my book was called Life After Sport, From Boot Room to Boardroom, because I wanted people to think about life after sport. The challenge of that is, no current athlete would read a book that says life after sport, because it means they're thinking about life after. If I'd have just changed the word after to outside of sport, then all of a sudden people would be reading it, because it's not a case of they're being distracted, or the boss thinks, why are you thinking about that?
Yeah.
So that small thing, and when we changed that terminology at Switch to Play, that's when we won the Premier League contract. So I'm not going in there to tell their young academy kids the real stats of how many of you in this room are going to make it. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to be that doom merchant, but that's the reality. I'm there to tell them and give them evidence that by doing other stuff outside of your football, it makes you a better human being, it'll make you a better football player. Regardless of how far you go, these things will help you be better. And just by educating the youngsters coming through to have, they want to be hairdressers, not them doing simulator, they want to be hairdressers or DJs or fashion design, all those things outside, that doesn't make them any less of a football player. It just means they've got more balance and more perspective on life. And that wasn't around when I started. It's definitely more around now. We see more high-profile players talking about it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I assume that ties back then your identity is no longer it's A, B, and
it's your
C.
job. You are more than your job. You're someone who's a charity ambassador. You've got your own coffee shop, and you play football, or and you play rugby at a high level. But all those other things means that if you have a bad day on the pitch, you go home, you can be distracted and you'll focus on something else, as opposed to watching the clips and going over the video and just drowning in that downward spiral.
So you mentioned you'd done stuff before you were 30 and forced retirement. Was that, who was it telling you to do those things? Why weren't you just,
I think again, my mindset of I was scared of going back to Coventry. I'd had a taste of what it looked like to be a professional athlete, and I didn't want to go out there. So I thought, what can I do if I can't run fast? What do I bring the team? Like if my knees challenge me, if all of a sudden I lose my speed and I've got to leave this environment, what am I good at? And I didn't know.
Yeah, right.
But I knew I loved business, so I went and shadowed the guys who are on pre-season training. They're in Ibiza or somewhere, Mallorca or somewhere, and I was working in the ticket office, just trying to figure out. I want to understand how the club works. So we're the team on the Saturday on the pitch where the fans come to watch, but there's a massive club around that. So I worked in the ticket office, worked in the commercial, shadowed the CEO. I loved it because I love business. And I was just a sponge. So I just take all the bits and people out. And I realized then that that's what I wanted to do when I finished playing. But I also realized my role, or our role as a team in that. Like if we play badly or we don't get the results, it has a knock-on effect on how many ticket sales can be sold. Or you get disgruntled people on the phone saying, oh, why should I renew my ticket because they played rubbish at the weekend? You don't think about that as a player because you're just thinking about the game. So I had a better perspective of the club.
And you're obviously a non-exec on there now.
Yeah, so I've gone full circle of retiring from Leicester, not really liking Leicester because they would sort of release me from my contract. To now, once I finished my PhD, I had a bit more capacity. I thought I had capacity. Then I found that 25th hour in the day. And I joined the board last year as a non-exec director, which is great for me because I get to see the club through a different lens. And I can impart some of the knowledge I've done on the leadership stuff I've done over the past 15 years and also in sport as well. So yeah, it's a good match at the moment.
And is it difficult? Because obviously you'll know your stuff when it comes to how rugby's played, how it should be played. But because you're no longer on the pitch, is it difficult if they're having a difficult game, is it difficult to watch? Because you want to impart knowledge or experience, or you understand where you sit in the position. It's just just like an ordinary fan then.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a fan. I come with a strategic head now, so I can't get in the weeds. That's down to the exec team and the people who are dealing with that. And yes, I can have opinions and everything else, but that's their job to do. The games, and I think I've learned. I think the way I exited the sport has helped me. When I detached myself from the sport for 10 years and didn't really watch it, that helps me see the game now through impartial. I can sit there, even though it's Leicester Tigers, it's my club. I can watch it now, and I can be really, objective around how we're playing, the decisions we're making. And I think that's come from my sort of sweet and sour. I always talk about sweet and sour. That's my life motto, sweet and sour. To fully appreciate the sweet, you have to taste the sour.
Okay.
And I've tasted the sour, and it makes me appreciate the sweet stuff. So I think that helps me.
And talk a bit about Best.
Yeah, so I love Best. It's when I retired, when I go through that period of trying to figure out what I was going to do, I got asked if I would go and do a keynote talk. I didn't know what was a keynote. I didn't know what a keynote was. And I think I wanted Lewis Moody to give it, who was one of my teammates, and he couldn't do it. And I said, what is it? And he went, you've got to stand on stage and just talk for 45 minutes. I went, what, just me? And he went, yeah. I went, absolutely no chance. Why would anyone do that? Like, literally the fear. Like, I can do Q&As, because part of your job as a player is you sit on a panel and do a Q&A and talk about the game, and you can sort of shape those, what questions are coming. But standing and talking by yourself, I thought, no chance. He went, oh, it's a shame. They're going to pay you £3,000. I was like, oh, let me have a go at that. Let me have a go. So I did it, and I was scared. And it was the first time I had that same feeling in my stomach, that nervousness of like, I need to perform here because I don't want to let myself down, anyone else around me down, like I did playing sport. And I'm running towards the fire. If I find something that I'm not strong at, I'll keep going, and I'll keep nudging, and I'll keep nudging. And that was definitely one where I wasn't. The first time didn't go very well, I don't think, in my eyes. But I wanted to be straight away. I wanted to be the best at what I'm doing.
All right.
So I went on this journey of saying yes to all these speaking opportunities, and I'd fall over, get things wrong, but I'd ask for feedback. Because in sport, you get feedback all the time. If I drop the ball on the pitch, I get feedback from the crowd.
Yeah.
My teammates give me feedback. Video analysis, we get feedback. My teammates give it me, I'd give it myself. So you're always getting feedback all the time. Outside of sport, you get feedback at an annual review or a quarterly review, and I need that feedback. So how do you get better? So after I finish my talk, I'd sit down with the booker and say, okay, so what did you enjoy? And typically they're being nice. Oh, it was really good, Leon, you did this. And I went, okay, what could I have done better? No, it was great. I went, come on. I know what could I do. I gave myself a 7 out of 10. What could I have done better? And because by pushing them to tell me what I could have done differently, I kept tweaking. So over a period of 8 years, I met an ex-football player called Paul McVeigh, who played for Spurs. Had a pretty similar career to me. Wasn't a household name. Had a great career. Played an international player, played for Northern Ireland. But when he retired around the same time as me, he was about 30 as well. He went to America, and rather than do what I did and fall over and keep getting up, fall over, he went to America and paid $20,000, I think it was, to go on a Tony Robbins course to learn very quickly in a short period. And we met on him. We were doing a very sexy or unsexy post-grad course in corporate governance.
Fascinating.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. But we met and we hit it off, and we combined both of our experiences into Best, and we created a residential which had the experience that he had in his, and then also the years of experience that I had of how did you get it wrong, how do you work with people, how do you get your feedback, and created Best. And that was really, initially it was started to help people who wanted to become a paid keynote speaker and earn an income or a side hustle, and then develop it to something down the line. But we pivoted a couple of times actually, and one was we've had some amazing, yourself included, we've had some amazing people come through our program who are at the top of their game, all high achievers, be that SAS officers, Red Arrows pilots, Champion Leagues winners, world champions, Paralympic champions, captains of industry. And it wasn't until we had people in the corporate space come on saying, absolutely love the program, like life-changing for me as a person. How do I put my team through it? It's what you're doing at the moment is too expensive to fit for our budgets, our CPD budgets, but we don't want to lose any of it. What can you do? Can you go away and design something? So we did. We went away and designed a condensed version, which is tailored towards not necessarily how people become more paid speakers now, keynote speakers, but people who have just got that ceiling of what they think they've got, that ceiling and where they can go in their careers. We help them smash that imposter syndrome, that help them go to the next level by presenting, delivering to internal, external stakeholders. So so I absolutely love it working with these high achievers.
Yeah. And I know you also do, you go into and give leadership talks and days as well. Talk just finally a bit about that.
I call myself a pracademic. As I mentioned before, I left school at 16. I don't see myself as an academic. I may have although I try and get my kids to call me Dr. Leon, but they won't do it. I've got that academic background now. I'm a practitioner. I like doing stuff. I'm a problem solver, which has its pros and cons. So what I do is I go in and rather than talk anecdotally about a problem or a challenge, about high performance, elite sport, elite military. So I work in the elite military space as well, which I've been very fortunate to do that over the last 12 years. I storytell and give examples which people can relate to who have not played elite sport or not been in the military, but then I underpin it with academic theory or rigor to make sure it's not just my opinion, because everyone's got opinion, which is fine, but I can back it up by data. And that, I think, I love that because it separates me from a lot of other people in that space where you've got great storytellers and then people will leave and they'll go, okay, that was an hour of my life I'm not going to get back. But I'm really big on accountability, and we put those pieces in there when I go and talk to an organisation. They pretty much know what they've got me in, what the challenge is, and I just help them see what that challenge is, but then underpin it with research and then hold them to account or get them to hold each other to account. And then I go back later on to see if they've done it, because that's how, if you want to achieve high performance, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, and look, I suppose for you as well, then you're so constantly surrounded by high performers, aren't you, in everything you do? So
I'm so lucky to, every day is a school day, and no 2 days are the same. If I'm in the corporate world, in the military world, in the sporting world, I'm always surrounded by very clever people. And yes, it's my job, but I'm also learning all the time as well.
Cool. So I'll just finish off with it. I understand the mentality around this drive, etc. And let's say if you've got frustrations about what could have been in the rugby world, but everyone who's on the outside, you do realise that everyone on the outside of that, which is probably 90.9999% of the world, who don't even get to do their hobby or their sport as a professional, let alone then play for their international. Obviously, it's not peculiar. I understand why it's difficult for you in some ways to process, but also you're being unbelievably lucky, and I don't mean luck, but to have those. So to have, I'm not saying you've got regrets, but to have things that eat at you, it's just like from the outside, it's like, why would you let that eat at you? I know, with everything you've accomplished?
And it's my issue, and I know it's an issue.
Well,
I think it's a double-edged sword. So I think it drives me. Yeah. It's my driver. And it's like if I'm coaching somebody or mentoring somebody now, and there's someone sat and I'm coaching myself, I'm like, have a word with yourself. Like, what you want about? So I know that I get it, and I don't want to. I leverage that to my own advantage. I don't know if you've seen,
rather than drag you down.
I don't know if you've seen the Michael Jordan documentary. Have you seen that?
No.
It's amazing on Netflix. And he talks about, he would tell himself that the person he's going to play against at that weekend had been bad-mouthing him and his mother in the media. The person hadn't said anything. And he'd actually got up to him and said, I heard what you said. Like, he had to get himself in that mindset just to be able to bring his A game, if you like. I'm not quite there, and I'm certainly not comparing myself to Michael Jordan. But I think for me, it's those things. I'm incredibly fortunate to have worked with and met and played and achieved some of those things. But there's so many things I've not done yet. So I use those as my driver.
Oh, very inspirational. Appreciate your time, Leon, and obviously it's been great to know you over the last year, and great work as well.
Hey,
appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.